when black musicians figured out how to use electronics for the greater good in the early 1980s, some damn good music came out of it. And the D Train version of Walk On By is absolutely one of those instances of exploration, creativity, and aha. What's going on, everybody? You're right on time for another ride on the Groove Line with your host, Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there. Hopefully, your Monday is off to a really good start. Hopefully, you have a really good week. I'm planning to have a real chill week because it's my college homecoming this weekend. So I'm very much looking forward to going back to my old alma mater. Shouts out to Delaware State University and HBCUs. Going to see some old friends. I'll be doing some work first, but then I'll be going to see some friends, shaking some hands, hugging some folks, catching up on old times, then bringing my ass right back up the road because I ain't a party animal. Never was. But not going to leave you guys with a bare cupboard this week, because this week is cover week. Every week, every day this week, we're going to talk about a song that was covered by another artist, one that might have been a hit for somebody originally, maybe not, or maybe the other way around. But today, we're going to talk about Walk On By. And I know y'all are probably thinking, Chris, how many times can people talk about the Isaac Hayes version of Walk On By? And you're right. I mean, I could do a hot buttered soul episode altogether. I may actually do one, so stay tuned. But no, we're not talking about the Isaac Hayes version. We can't talk about the Dionne Warwick version because that's the original. We're talking about covers, remember? And you're probably thinking, well, Chris, how many other covers of Walk On By can there be? Aha, there are several. But my personal favorite, outside of the Isaac Hayes version, was done by this gentleman. Well, it was two gentlemen, actually. But the gentleman on your screen is Mr. James D. Train Williams and his keyboardist producer, Hubert Eaves III, who, of course, was a huge part of Mtume. We need to do a James Mtume episode, by the way. But yeah, D Train, the group, did a version of Walk On By for the You're the One For Me debut album that came out in the first half of 1982. I wanted to talk about the D Train version of Walk On By because there's only so many ways you figure you can cover a song that started off as a pop standard. Isaac Hayes turned it into a psychedelic soul torture session. Average White Band did a version of it also. A couple other folks did it before D Train, but the early 80s, that's probably, if it's not my favorite period of black music, it's pretty close, because there was a point where disco stopped becoming pop. And I want to thank Marcus Chapman for correcting me on that, saying that disco, the music didn't die, just, the popularity of it went back underground. And that made a lot of sense once you listen to the music, because I mean, disco itself just turned into dance music. It just never really went away. It just went back underground. So when you think about 1981, 1982, when D Train and Hubert Eaves get signed to Prelude Records, Prelude had some really good stuff in the early 80s, by the way, man. Like, I miss old independent boutique type labels where if you weren't, I mean, you may have had distribution, but you were pretty much, signed to that label, and you also had these really neat, album covers and 45s and things, like the Prelude logo with the Rainbow Dance Floor. That's one of my favorite records ever. If I ever start getting serious about collecting vinyl, Prelude records are going to be the first on my list, trust and believe. But yes, D Train started off as James Williams being D Train because he played defensive tackle on his high school football team, and the team captain said when he hits you, it's like being hit by a train. I played defensive tackle in high school. I wasn't very good, so they didn't call me the C Train. But if you're that good, they'll give you a nickname, and James Williams earned the nickname D Train. But he was always a singer. So Will Downing, the legendary Will Downing, he and D Train were classmates. So that's how he met Hubert Eaves III, who was gigging with Mtume at the time. So they started a thing, and by 81, they got signed to Prelude. And you got to remember, when this version of Walk On By comes out in the summer of 82, D Train is himself, James Williams, is 20 years old. Like, this dude wasn't even old enough to drink, but sounded like a full-grown man. Like, I prefer his vocal version of Walk On By to Isaac Hayes'. And Isaac Hayes was one of the huge symbols of black masculinity in the 70s. But D Train, this dude was just barking in key, and I'm saying this as a compliment, mind you. I'm not saying this as a pejorative. I'm saying it's a compliment. D Train barked in pain on Walk On By. Like, just if you see me walking down the street, like, he was just fed up. Like he was mad that this woman left him. I mean, when you think about most versions of Walk On By, it's just like really sad and depressing. Like Dionne Warwick's, live version is just kind of like painful. Isaac Hayes' version is just like, I can tell you how Isaac Hayes' version of Walk On By got me through a very bad situationship ending. I can tell you about that another time. But the D Train version of Walk On By is just fury, emotional fury, or maybe even breaking free in your fury, because the beat on that is just like you get strings. It was so that I think that's what's interesting about that record too, is that the D Train version of Walk On By is that the strings that go with the keyboard synths that are played by Hubert Eaves and the drum pattern, like all of that is electro. But you throw those strings in there, and here comes the keys, and the bass, boom, 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 boom. The funny thing about that record is that it wasn't, I mean, obviously it wasn't the most popular on the record because, you had You're the One for Me, which broke D Train worldwide in December of 81, January of 82. Then Keep On comes out later that spring. And, the refrain from that, sky is limited, that you keep on. Biggie and 112 sampled that for Sky's the Limit on Life After Death. That Brooklyn connection, man, strong. The D Train version of Walk On By, it's my favorite. I'm not going to say it's better than Isaac Hayes' version because Isaac Hayes' version of Walk On By is an all-timer. Dionne Warwick's original is an all-timer. The Sybil version of Walk On By, for you 90s club kids, that's a pretty good version. But my personal favorite is the D Train version because it's just like when black musicians figured out how to use electronics for the greater good in the early 1980s, some damn good music came out of it. And the D Train version of Walk On By is absolutely one of those instances of exploration, creativity, and aha. So maybe we can't do disco, but we can still do something for on the flourish with these drum machines. We can still keep the bass within those four notes. We can keep the strings there. These keyboards, we can play with these keyboards. Black producers and musicians in the early 80s deserve a ton of credit for embracing the technology and just taking it and run with it, because that saved R&B and black music in the early 80s after the fallout from Disco Demolition Night. Even though disco was still popular, electro and boogie gave it a new life. Electro funk, electro boogie, or post disco is basically just disco with 20th century cues, with these drum machines, with these synths and keyboards and different things of that nature. It's all disco. It's still disco. And the D Train version of Walk On By, if you haven't heard it, highly recommend you check it out. You won't be disappointed. Like I said, D Train himself, his vocal performance is great. Hubert Eaves' production is top notch. Like, you can see yourself in a party somewhere in 1982, people just, doing the latest dances to Walk On By at some after hours spot, some hole in the wall joint where there's like no cover charge. You got a bouncer who's particularly nasty, but you trying to get in because you seen that were they using, was fly a term in the early 80s? I don't think it was. I think people were just, I think fine might have been. I think people were using fine. I mean, because Howard Johnson had a hit in 1982 with So Fine. Baby, baby, baby. Rest in peace, Kashif. But yeah, I think people overlooked the bouncers, overlooked the drinks or whatever, because you were trying to get to that fine honey or that fine guy, and you guys were going to cut a rug, and hopefully after hours, y'all got even more after hours, So yeah, I could definitely hear, Walk On By D Train being played in the club somewhere, and people just, jigging, trying to, get closer to the object of their affection. And that's the beauty of music, man. It's always supposed to bring us together in many different ways. And that's going to do it for this ride on the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate y'all as always. This is day one. We got a few more covers to cover this week. This is probably going to be a series. So, I mean, you guys just look for all the, matter of fact, I have playlists now on this channel. If you go to the playlist tab on the Groove Line, you can find a playlist about the sound of Philadelphia, the Whispers, the year 1980, the year 1975, all of my guests, and I'm still working on guests for this channel, so don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. We still gonna have some guests on this channel. It ain't gonna just be me talking. I want to talk to some old school folks. I want to talk to some current musicians too. We're going to work that out. Y'all going to enjoy it. So thank y'all for riding with me on the groove line. And until the next time we ride, may you find the groove or may the groove find you.